what have you noticed the difference between the NGOs and the for-profit side of things?
So, for example, one of the projects we did when I was at an NGO was teaching these women how to grow pineapples correctly.
Okay.
So, you know, after 2 months of training, they were growing the best pineapples ever. But they had, besides the local market, and a lot of people grow their own, they had nowhere to sell it. So even though they had, even though they had this amazing product, it didn't make a difference to their lives because no one was buying it. Whereas, if for the for-profit side of things, all our business is market-led.
Okay.
And our markets are high-value markets, so we ship to the United States, the Arab Emirates, and people pay a premium for a product which is grown in Africa. So all our smallholders who grow for us, they have access to those markets. So it's kind of like the company I work for is a bridge between the grower and the buyer. So we're an agri-fruit processing business. We source from what we call a blended supply chain. So we have our commercial farms, which are 5,000 hectares. We're the only Rainforest Alliance certified mango farm in the world. So we work with 5,000 smallholders, but we have a waiting list of 20,000.
Wow.
Which is a lot. It's a lot of people. We work in the Salima district, and all the fruit that we get from this blended supply chain, we have a factory on site, and then we blend it into pulp and then sell it to the regional and international juice market. So, for example, if you drink Innocent smoothie, those are our mangoes and bananas.
Oh, wow.
So one of the things that makes us unique, that's unique about our business model, is from the very beginning, we knew that if we were going to work in a country such as Malawi, where 90% of people live below $2 a day, you really have to be engaged with issues of development. You have to talk about sanitation, health, nutrition, education, because nearly no one is educated. So, for example, one of the big projects that we're getting really excited about, calling it the incubator. So it's basically a farming university. So the way that it works is on one of our big farms, we're reserving 500 hectares, and on half a hectare's plots, we're taking in 1,000 graduates. Anyone, no matter what their level of education or experience in farming, from the age of 18 to 25. And for that year, we teach them how to grow sustainably, how to use fertilizers, how to use drip irrigation, but also we have a lot of NGOs on board who are teaching them about family planning, basic maths, finance, planning for finance, HIV education, family nutrition. So it's like a holistic university. But what's great about it is because they're growing crops for us, after that 1 year, they will have paid back all their university fees. They will have a microfinance loan, so they go back into their villages and buy a 1 hectare plot.
Oh, wow.
After a year of growing on that 1 hectare plot, they have paid back their microfinance loan and they own all the infrastructure on that plot. And after 2 years, all they're turning is profit. Because the whole point was to make a company in Malawi for Malawians and eventually run by Malawians. Now that everything's working, our business model actually works, we've done a couple speeches, people are getting excited, and we're kind of getting this reputation for being, you know, one of the good guys of the for-profit sector. If you speak to Craig or Jonny, their aim isn't to become the biggest juice pulp manufacturer in Africa. It's marketing the company to be an exemplary model of what business should be in a developing country.
I think what we should say when it comes to advice is, I think maybe one of the most important things is fear shouldn't be a good enough reason not to do something. I think that's the one thing that we would really want to pass on to people. Being afraid is not enough to stop you from doing something that's important to you, something you believe in, and something that you want. I think, there's that very famous quote, I think it's Henry David Thoreau, says, there's nothing wrong with building your castles in the sky. You just got to make sure you put foundations under them. So I think, from our perspective, we'd say, do the work, be committed, and figure out how it's going to work, but don't just abandon it because you're scared of it. That'd be a real shame.
So, a bit of naivety goes a long way.
Sure.
It's been incredibly challenging. If I'd known what we'd developed to date, I probably wouldn't have believed I could have done it. So actually, that's a good message to people, belief, but take the first step, take the first baby step, and it's incremental. This has been an incredible journey, with the highest highs and the lowest lows. But perseverance, support, and just a belief in what you're trying to achieve. I believe everyone's naturally good at something, and I think it's important that people discover what that is, try to discover, and try and do something that's aligned to that. Now that doesn't mean I say playing football or whatever, or playing music. I mean, it's just a natural skill in people, and I think if people can align what their career is to that, then I think they're more likely to enjoy themselves whilst they're doing it. I think that's really critical. I also believe you need to align yourself to the values of who or what you're working for. If you're not aligned to those, or the business you're working for, or whatever you're working for, if your values personally are not aligned to those, then it's always going to be a struggle. So, but don't worry, if you end up in places like that, then you learn that, you realise that this isn't aligned to you, then you have to make the decision to move on, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I've done throughout my career.
More than any other time, I really believe that this is the graduates generation. This is the time for people who want to do things, who have got the belief in an idea, who've got the belief in themselves to say, I want to try this. I think we live in an incredibly dynamic world of industry which is changing. I don't think you're operating in the same financial sectors that we were 10 years ago. In the post-credit crunch environment. I think there's a lot more ideas that people are prepared to talk about that perhaps before were deemed to be ideas out on the fringe. I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be going out into the workplace, and I think the advice I'd give is, don't be afraid to say what it is you want to do and then go out and look for it. I think you might have to find some things, it may not be straightforward, but I really believe that now is your time. This generation has a better chance than any other before it about really getting stuck into exciting new ways of doing business and new ways of operating. Many things. Sure, I mean, of course there are. I think if there's a message that we want to say to people is, it should never stop. You should keep aspiring to do the things you want to do and keep trying to do those things. If anything, that's the essence of, I think, what we're all doing here. I think being caught up in a place, whatever you do, if you're getting bored of it, if it's getting tired, if it's not working for you anymore, then you should change it. And I think at the same time, if you're doing something which makes you extremely happy, then don't change it. Go where it makes you happy. If you can overcome the fear and do something that you really want to do, and put the risk and put the perception aside, then I think one of the great things about that is it sets you up incredibly for whatever it is that happens afterwards. You're only going to have the fear once. That first time you really step out of it, or maybe more. But you know what I mean? Once you've made that decision to part from something difficult, I think you can really go on, and it helps frame a lot of things in your life.
And that's it. I can, throughout my career, and I mentioned a bit earlier, every part of my career, good and bad, I've learned something and taken it on.
Totally.
It's every bit has helped me on my next stage. You don't know necessarily what the next stage is, but everything you learn, like I say, good and bad, helps you and prepares you for that next stage.
Honestly, don't give up. I mean, keep going. Absolutely keep going. Never give up, never stop doing and pursuing the thing that you want to do, and that you want to find out about. Odds are, if you pursue it with that commitment, you'd be amazed. You're talking to two guys who sat in a restaurant and said, what would it look like if we started Malawi's first ever commercial fruit processing industry? And as we like to say to each other, I think that if we'd known then how much we would have to know now, I think we may not have done it. It may have been too terrifying for us. A little bit of naivety does go a long way. Our advice would be, figure out what it is you think you might like to do, and then relentlessly pursue it.